Welcome back to another episode of Out Loud Geek, where we discuss news and views about pop culture, science fiction, fantasy, food, cooking, the outdoors, and more. Last week, I released a video about Jaguar fully embracing DEI and woke identity politics in its newest ad that featured androgynous actors in monochrome outfits with no cars in sight. Then a few days ago, America's largest employer, the retail giant Walmart, which employs roughly 1.6 million people in the US alone, plus another 500,000 internationally, released a statement that it's abandoning its DEI policies. And it's not alone. According to this article from Newsweek that was published on November 26th, Ford, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, John Deere, Molson Coors, Harley-Davidson, Stanley Black & Decker, Toyota, and Bud Light have already all done the same. That's 11 corporations included in this article, but as I stated in that video that I referenced a short while ago, so did Boeing as of the end of October. And for the vast majority of these companies, their abandonment of DEI also includes them pulling out of the Human Rights Campaign Foundation's Corporate Equity Index, which rates workplaces based on LGBTQ+ inclusion. The fact that major US employers are abandoning woke identity politics in the form of DEI, as well as the results of the 2024 US presidential election, are indications of how a growing number of Americans feel about the ideology and DEI practices in general. But not Hollywood, at least not yet. Hollywood fully embraced woke identity politics in the wake of two consecutive Academy Award ceremonies in 2015 and 2016 because no people of color were nominated for Best Actor, Best Actress, Best Supporting Actor, or Best Supporting Actress awards. And in the minds of woke activists at the time, that was simply not permissible. The Walt Disney Company, under CEO Bob Iger, helped to lead the charge into embracing woke identity politics, though Lucasfilm, under Kathleen Kennedy's control, was already pushing her brand of radical feminism, which is a close cousin to woke identity politics, into Star Wars, and later into the Willow and Indiana Jones franchises too. But few in Hollywood have been willing to speak up. And, in fact, most in Hollywood, like Rachel Zegler, freaked out over the results of the recent US presidential election. And then she went out of her way to attack more than half of this nation's citizens on social media, as I had talked about in a video that I had released more than a week ago. Then Disney more than likely forced her to apologize in a written response, in a writing style that was very different from her own, probably because it had been written for her by Disney. Now, one former Disney and Amazon Studios executive has publicly spoken up about Hollywood's contemptuous attitude towards its own audience, as well as its hatred for white people and men in general. But before proceeding, I'd like to ask everyone to please like this video, please leave a comment, please subscribe to support this channel, and please press the bell to receive notifications. Thanks! Over on the Fandom Pulse Substack, an article written by John F. Trent that was posted on November 25th is entitled, "Former Amazon and Disney Executive Affirms That Hollywood Has Contempt for the Audience and Hostility Toward White People and Men." The article begins, Amazon Video and Amazon Studios founder and Disney executive Roy Price lampooned Hollywood for having contempt for the audience and hostility toward white people and men. In a recent article posted to his Substack entitled "Woke is the New Disco," Price blasted the current Hollywood elite for living within, quote, "an America that exists mainly in Hollywood HR departments, Columbia's faculty lounge, and at CNN and MSNBC," unquote. He noted that the studios and the elites that run them have chosen to disdain and ignore many Americans, including, quote, half the country's voters, 40% of Americans who own guns, another 40% who attend church monthly, and the 74% who live outside the West Coast, New York, or New England, and add to this roughly 50% of Americans who are male, unquote. Next, Price declared that the deeper problem within Hollywood is contempt for the audience. And that has been a recurring topic in my own videos. So it's gratifying to see an actual Hollywood insider confirm everything that many have suspected and claimed for a long time. He explained, quote, "Wokeness, both in politics and entertainment, carries within it a strong and explicit element of hostility, particularly toward white people and men. While this approach initially gained compliance through social pressure and corporate acquiescence a few years ago, such accommodations were, of course, temporary," unquote. And he also wrote, quote, "Amongst the people and in courtrooms, by 2024, wokeness has become toxic." Yes, wokeness is incredibly toxic. Hollywood, the trades, and the shill access media websites demonstrate their toxicity all the time, and Rachel Zegler is a prime example of Hollywood's toxicity. To a large part of the audience, it is an embarrassing, widely resented relic of the past, and the people need to see that acknowledged by candidates. They, especially men, need to see wokeness disavowed, unquote. He later reiterated, quote, "Hollywood is having a difficult time partially because, like Kamala Harris, it has been denying the reality of the audience. It has not been meeting customer expectations, mostly because it disdains them." And what does Hollywood, the trades, and the shill access media always do when an expensive woke movie or TV show fails? Like clockwork, they very predictably attack the audience each and every time. It is time to focus on doing well, making great shows, hiring the best people, and responding to customers. Meeting customers where they are. Giving the people what they want. Because making customers the enemy of your industry is never viable. Unquote. Roy Price deserves a Pulitzer Prize in writing for his Substack article because he is brilliant. And he gets exactly what's wrong in Hollywood today. He also shared why he believes Hollywood was so easily captured by the ideology, writing, quote, "For most people it is conformity. Hiring decisions are subjective in Hollywood, so there is always pressure to conform. In addition, at this point, some people believe that if not for wokeness, they would not have their jobs. And in parentheses, they're probably right about that," unquote. Finally, Price revealed why he believes Hollywood should and can be saved, and explained how that might occur. Admittedly, I'm skeptical that Hollywood can be saved from itself. First, he stated, quote, "At this point, it is not enough to not be woke. One must be anti-woke," unquote. And I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. As for what that entails, he shared that it means putting a focus back on, quote, "meritocracy, ambition, freedom, and humor," unquote. And as I said earlier, Roy Price deserves a Pulitzer Prize for his Substack article because he's 100% correct. Furthermore, he noted that it means that the era of canceling must come to an end, and that accusations must be handled with, quote, "fact-based, level-headed judgment," unquote. You mean that Hollywood, the trades, and shill access media websites should stop blaming all of Hollywood's failures on the audience? Yes, that's exactly what needs to happen. He wrote, quote, "The super woke may have to leave, or perhaps some can walk it back. But Hollywood could also start by confronting the original sin of this recent era by distinguishing between those excluded for legitimate reasons and those purged in a feral moment of vindictive frenzy to capture power," unquote. It's very important to remember that one of the aims of woke identity politics comes from Marxism, deposing and replacing those in power with themselves. Price's comments do not come out of nowhere, and it's more than just Hollywood that is promoting this hateful, disgusting agenda. To bolster Price's claim about Hollywood having disdain for its audience and hostility towards white people and specifically white men, one need look no further than Canadian-owned publication Collider, who published an article by Cameron Barnett earlier this year entitled "Star Wars' Biggest Problem is the Fans." And I am all too familiar with this article. I cited it and quoted from it in a video that I had released on July 7th, which was my 479th video episode entitled "Woke Media Desperately Attacks Star Wars Fans Trying to Do Damage Control for the Acolyte." And I pointed out in that video that Barnett had only been working for Collider since May. So he wasn't a seasoned journalist when he wrote this article, he was just a loud woke activist who used Collider to write a hit piece against longtime Star Wars fans who he clearly hates. In the article, Barnett concludes, quote, "The most vocal viewers of the franchise wield the power of the internet in order to push a bigoted agenda that originates from the prejudices of an earlier time, while mainstream Star Wars content has grown to produce meaningful narratives while being bogged down by hate in the background," unquote. In other words, if you don't like woke identity politics being pushed into Star Wars, then according to Barnett, you are filled with hate. But let's look at this from a psychological perspective. His statement, along with his entire toxic article that hatefully criticizes longtime Star Wars fans, was nothing more than him projecting his own personal hatred towards the fans onto them. And that's what Hollywood, the trades, and the shill access media websites, which includes Collider, have been doing for several years, projecting their own hatred for more than half of America that has grown weary of and ultimately rejected seeing woke identity politics crammed down their throats in virtually every Hollywood production. Hollywood race swaps or gender swaps characters, narratives are altered, and entire franchises have been thrown under the bus, all in the name of pushing woke identity politics with total disregard and disdain for the audience. But what's happening now in corporate America, as I had talked about earlier in the video? Corporate America is finally abolishing its deeply entrenched DEI woke identity politics policies that, in truth, are nothing more than an excuse for wholesale institutionalized racism and sexism. What Cameron Barnett, who wrote that toxic Collider hit piece against longtime Star Wars fans, is clearly unable to accept is that Star Wars was always meant for everyone. There were no signs adorning theaters in the 1970s or 1980s stating that if you weren't a white man that you weren't going to like Star Wars, nor were any similar warning labels ever attached to Star Wars DVDs or Blu-rays, or shown before broadcasts of Star Wars movies on TV or cable. George Lucas created Star Wars for everyone, but for woke activists like Cameron Barnett, if a movie or show doesn't specifically pander to his preferences, then that movie or show is discriminatory. And this is precisely what woke identity politics activists have been doing throughout Hollywood, force every single movie and show to pander specifically to them, while simultaneously chastising the vast majority who are tired of it, which is why the saying, "go woke, go broke," is a factual statement. So until Hollywood abandons DEI and woke identity politics like the rest of corporate America is doing, their ongoing woke movies and shows are destined to become financial failures. Thanks for watching today, and a huge thanks to each and every one of you who has subscribed to support this channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, X, and Blue Sky by clicking on the links in the description. Until next time, this is Out Loud Geek.